everyone, it's Julia and welcome back to my channel. This past weekend I made a bunch of my clay covered buttons and I filmed the process. I think you might enjoy these. They're funky, they have an organic look to them, very handcrafted look. Each one is different. They're lightweight and washable. I love them for my cuffs. I also used to make a bunch of sweatshirt jackets and I would put them on my sweatshirt jackets. I did a project, probably a couple, 3 weeks ago. I'll list it down below, but making my rag bags. And I did put, this one's not attached yet, but I did put a clay button on that project. And I had some comments about how do you make those or what are those? And so I thought I would do this. I needed a bunch more for my stash. They're just artsy and colorful. And I hope you enjoy this. Let's get started. Some of the supplies that I use, I love this little acrylic roller and plates. I got this off of Amazon. I'll link that down below. It also comes with these little circle cutters, which are kind of fun to play with. I'm using the Fimo clay, which is a polymer clay, which you do bake. But there are a lot of different clays out there. I haven't tried the air dry clay, but I'm sure that would work as well. You might want to check and test to see if it's washable. I use a lot of rubber stamps. These are my stamps that are mounted on wood. Also, a lot of my paper crafting items. I'm just going to be sharing some of those with you. Some of these I just use as backgrounds or just use the impression, and I don't use them with ink. But if I do use ink, I do like using the StazOn. I have an X-Acto knife there, and this is like a polyacrylic sealer that I use. And these perfect pearls work wonderful and also this is like a rub-on, metallic rub-on. I just use these in different ways too. And this is an old cookie sheet that I use for dyeing paper. You don't want to bake on anything that you use for food. The buttons that I cover are just plain buttons, 1 inch to 1.5 inches in diameter. Just cutting off a little of each of these blocks. This is the very first step, and this is to do the kneading. Each one of these has to be warmed with your hands and just kneaded to make them more pliable. Just rolling them in the ball too will just put that heat into it, which will make them softer. The second step is to do the rolling and the covering of the buttons. I roll these in between the plates, and you do want it to be approximately 1/8 of an inch. I do it quite thin. The buttons, using the buttons for the base is going to just give these a lot of strength. And then it's just a matter of just turning those edges around or to the back side, pressing them in, and just covering these buttons. I'm saving all those little pieces. I do add those for just different decorations, and just I don't waste any of it. This yellow it's just too bold for me, so I'm blending in some of this brown. And that's another thing I really like about this Fimo clay is it does blend really well. You can just change the color up. I do have a particular project in mind for this button, and I'll be sharing that project probably in my next video. I do have an upcycle or a sweatshirt that I'm going to be redoing, and I'm going to use a button on it. Now, I did mention that these are washable, and I do also like the fact that they're really lightweight. The clay does not add much weight at all to these buttons. Again, just laying my buttons so the face side is down, using my X-Acto knife to cut around it, and just leaving about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch around the edges. Adding some of those scraps right on top of this orange and rolling that just to smash those colors together. Flipping this over and then laying my buttons face down, and again doing the same thing, just cutting around, and now you'll see how the different colors just show on the button. And here's another example of something you can do. This is a perfect pearl that I'm using just to blend right into the clay, and this will also make it so that it's not so bright. Really like the way this looks. You can also put glitter in it. There's just a lot of different things you can try. This just really calms down that purple. Once all the buttons are covered, it's on to the third step, which is decorating. And there's so many different things you can do. I'm just going to share a few examples. I cut using that little round cutter and just put a circle. And now with a blunt needle, just making a little design on the top here, right around the edge of this button. You always want to poke your buttonholes in before you bake. It's really difficult to put them in after it's hardened. And now just taking a little bit of this Pearl X with and just dipping my finger in there and rubbing. I will link everything down below if I can find different things, but honestly, you can find a lot of these just at your craft store. Different scrapbooking areas will probably have some of this, the metallic Pearl X. And this, now I'm not using an ink using that stamp at all. I just want the impression, and then you can see how it just pops using some of that powder. Again, getting those holes in. This one just has a 2-hole button. 2-hole work wonderful, 4-hole, whichever you have. Again, just using a stamp to get the impression of that flower, and then just using some of the powder to really make that flower pop. And a star doing the same way. This is that button that I'm going to be adding to a sweatshirt. And then I want to add a darker brown to the very edge. Now this one I'm going to be using some ink with this leaf stamp. This is going to be a nature button. And taking the tip of my needle and just forming a little bit of an edge to that. Really love how this one turned out. And now I stamped right on a piece of scrap yellow there, that leaf, and we'll just be adding that. That's another way you can add your designs, just adding them right to the top. This time I'm using the very tip of that needle. I'm just poking some holes in it. And here too, I am just going to be, with my X-Acto knife, cutting this flower form out and adding that to the top of a button. And this is that metallic rub. It's creamy and it leaves your fingers really messy, but you can just kind of blend the colors. Just really interesting look. cutting out some more little circles, and we'll be adding those to the top of this. I really like how these buttons turned out too. I'm using this spiral sun and just pressing that design into the button, and then using just some of that powder again to make that design pop. And there you can see the design. One last one I'm doing here too with a butterfly. You're going to see pictures of all these at the end too. I'm just going to do some close-ups of them so you'll be able to see some of the details a little bit better. This one I just added just some of those scraps just to the top of the button, forming a little geometric shape. I use press and seal to anything left over. And now I have them all on my cookie sheet, and these will be baking. This is the next step, is the baking. At 230 degrees, I leave mine in for about 25 minutes. And then once they're cooled, it's on to just sealing them. This is the last step. I just put a thin coat of the seal on it, and this is a satin finish, but you can also get a matte if you don't want any shine to it at all. I hope you enjoyed this, everybody. I'm going to be just adding some pictures here at the end. I hope you give this a try. There are just a lot of fun to add to your projects. Have a great week. Hope you have a chance to create. Bye for now.